3 position. He's super aero. He gets very low and very narrow.
Now look how it's stretched out single file here, and this isn't even the end of the stage. Looks like the field now going under the 2K banner to where the finish line is positioned.
Okay, sounds the way it started. First,
and our 3 leaders.
Just that was a bit of a warm-up.
Kristen Nees pacing the way for Team Sky. Pinoti for BMC behind him, and then Armandia. Now the peloton really moving, but they should feel pretty good about the margin to these 3 riders right now, as we're down to the final half K to the intermediate sprint for the breakaway.
I don't expect any of the guys in the break really too concerned. Maybe the Spaniard in the middle, Armandia, just to showboat a little in front of his home crowd because he's a Spanish rider. These guys really just trying to work very well together to stay away from the peloton more than anything.
Will be the finish line in just over 30 kilometers from now, and seeing it for the first time as we just did, those final 500 meters didn't look too bad.
No, they really didn't, Steve, and it's also slightly uphill as well.
All right, so the 1K banner was right there. We saw the red kite as the field went through. Our 3 leaders have gone through the finish line. They're out on the loop now around town.
Say this brings back memories and feelings I had being in breakaways late in the race. You go through a big city like this with large crowds and everybody cheering for you, and it can just give you chills up and down your body because there's so much energy in that crowd, and their cheering is almost like transferring some of that energy to you to try and succeed.
So it's that turn, that right-hander with about 700 meters to go, that looks like it's going to be the only difficult thing in the final kilometer in terms of messing up a potential sprint, as Katusha will lead the field across the line now.
Just that slight little bend there inside of the finish line, but pretty wide, pretty good for a big bunch finish. Pretty straightforward. It should be down to the fast men, but hey, it was pretty straightforward yesterday too, and it was a very unusual finish after all.
Well, they only have 6 seconds in the 5K banner, so that's plenty of time for this field to bring them back.
Yeah, a lot of different teams now coming into the mix. Orica Greenedge could not do it on their own, so now it's Movistar up there.
Like Valverde was second wheel. This is that roundabout we saw before where they went all the way around. So several roundabouts and some technical corners, but the final kilometer, not as bad as the initial profile indicated. They have a turn at 700 meters to go, but it looks like the sprint should be pretty straightforward if it comes down to that. Gilbert and Stybar still hanging on out front with 4K left.
Steve, the course may be pretty straightforward, but I just wonder how straightforward the eventual sprint will be if they catch the 2 leaders, because you look at the front of the field, 2 Movistar, 1 Lampre, 1 Euskaltel. There is no team up there with strength in numbers. It is completely mixed up right now.
And if that's the case and it continues this way, it's going to come down to positioning and just all-out speed.
Indeed, and now I'm seeing 3 Skymen up there for Edvald Boassenhagen in the black with the blue vertical stripe. He's the guy who's been trying for it as well.
So it was 16 back-to-back rides.
It may be a freelance opportunity that a rider takes to springboard to a win. But first, they have to catch these two riders who are still leading with 3K left.
And this is that section coming off of those bricks and cobbles there that the peloton is really sketchy. And look at Philippe. Boy, he does have some good form. There's no doubt about it. He is absolutely smoking. Now 3K to go.
All around these tight corners and the narrow roads, hard to tell exactly what their advantage is over the peloton. Well, now it's 12 seconds, so they doubled their advantage from the last benchmark on the road. Under 3 kilometers left. They're making it interesting here.
Movistar still on the front right now with 2 guys, and that's not going to bring back the breakaway. There's no way that if we see it like this much longer, those Movistar guys can't do it. They need a team with several guys or a few teams to come to the front right now. This is touch and go.
Not many other teams for the pure sprinters can do it. This is Dan Martin, who crashed. Number 111 has teammates with him trying to get back up into the field here.
It's not looking good for him.
The top sprinters teams just don't have that collective strength right now to come to the front. Orica Green Edge, one of the only teams that can do it. They were riding at the front a short while ago, but now they've dropped off.
Indeed, this is looking actually pretty good right now for the breakaway duo of Gilbert on the front, Stybar behind him, a Belgian and a Czech rider there.
They're adding to their lead here. 16 seconds. They may take it.
I think they have a very good shot at this point, Steve. They are really flying right now. And you know what? Gilbert has to be careful. He's a good finisher, but he cannot underestimate the newfound speed of Zdeněk Stybar. Stybar was not used to sprinting on the road, and he found something he didn't know he had at Eneco Tour.
And Gilbert has been doing more work than Stybar. He's been at the front of that duo more than he's been sitting on. And he was the man who made the initial acceleration that Stybar followed. Here they are with 1.5 kilometers left to go.
Oh, it is definitely going to be down to the wire.
Just like yesterday.
Oh, my goodness.
And again, it's an Omega Pharma Quick-Step rider. Yesterday it was Tony Martin. Today, Stybar. He's got company in Gilbert. They're trying to steal it from the sprinters here. And coming up on the final kilometer. And no organized chase by one sprinter's team behind.
Oh, that plays beautifully into the hands of the breakaway duo. It still doesn't mean they've got it made, but it definitely helps them stay away.
There's the red kite, just over half a mile to the finish. I think they got it.
Yeah, at this point, I would agree with you. They have it. It's Orica on the front, FDJ there in the second spot. And then Argos, so...
Who are you thinking, Gongo? Stybar, Gilbert?
I would really like to see the lead duo and see if Stybar is sitting on at this point or if he is still swapping poles. If he's not swapping poles, he could take Philippe.
All right, there's an FDJ rider in the blue who's launched a move from the field now. The cat and mouse. And they can't play games for much longer here because now the train is in full effect at 0.5 kilometer to go. FDJ, Argos chasing. Gilbert and Stybar trying to hang on here.
Well, Stybar is in the perfect position, not having to do any work, but are they going to get caught?
They can't wait. They got to go. Now Stybar accelerates past Philippe Gilbert. Gilbert's second wheel at 150 meters left to go. Stybar trying to pull away. Here comes the pack behind him. Zdeněk Stybar watches Gilbert come up alongside it at the finish line. Stybar raising his arms in celebration. What a sprint at the end of stage 7.
Oh, Stybar denying the reigning world champion. I tell you what, the Czech rider is really showing something special this year, Steve.
Yesterday, Omega Pharma Quick-Step's Tony Martin was just caught at the line. Today, his teammate Stybar just survives at the finish to get the win. The 27-year-old from the Czech Republic, Zdeněk Stybar, coming off his overall win at the Eneco Tour just prior to the Vuelta, now gets a stage win here on the 7th day of the Spanish Grand Tour, coming around Philippe Gilbert at the very end. Once once again denying the reigning world champion an elusive win in the rainbow jersey. And he is our performance of the day, presented by Gearbox. It was close. Steve, they were coming.
He was very much in that position where he had to jump. He sat on Gilbert, waited as the charge came. He kept looking back, and then right at the last moment, he said, okay, I gotta go now. And they were so close to the finish line, Gilbert could not recover, close the gap, and get around him.
Gilbert almost did come around him, though. Right here. Boy, it was close.
And it's funny how it works like that, but that's when everybody has everything on the line. As no categorized climbs over the first 95 miles of the race, but the last 9, which brings them up to 104 for the total, is that big climb, 3,150 feet of vertical, and that one is going to create a little bit of separation. It starts out quite hard, the 12.5% is early on, and then it levels off a little bit.
And we are looking down live at the Peloton on a sunny and hot day in southern Spain. And as far as what is at stake in this stage number 8, I think the big thing is the unknown climb at the end that should really heat up the general classification. May not decide it, but it's a climb that's never been used before in the Vuelta. A lot of these riders, even many of the Spaniards, don't know the climb, so that always adds that element of mystery and intrigue.
Indeed, I talked with Chris Horner's director yesterday. I asked if he had seen the climb, and he said no, they've seen video of the climb. Same thing for Belkin, for Bauke Mollema. They hadn't seen the climb either. They had video of the climb that they were reviewing. So that tells me 2 things. 1, they're busy guys and they don't have time to go look at all the courses. And 2, maybe they don't think it's going to be incredibly selective, but that also throws a little bit of an unknown into it as well.
There is a little more than 40 kilometers left to go on the stage, and this Peloton is just over 4 minutes behind our largest breakaway of the race so far. 13 riders up the road today. The team in the turquoise, that is Astana, the team of overall race leader Vincenzo Nibali, wearing a red jersey today, staying near the front of the Peloton. But so far in this first week, the size of the breakaways have been pretty small. 4 or 5 guys, even a 1-rider breakaway in Tony Martin just a couple of stages ago. There is Joaquin Rodriguez in the red and white of Katusha, team leader of that squad, riding alongside his trusty teammate Daniel Moreno. And actually Moreno in the white jersey could be a better candidate for the stage win than Perito here today. This climb really doesn't suit Rodriguez as much as some of the other climbs later in the race because of its steady gradients near the finish. He likes the short, punchy, explosive climbs that are short and steep just near the top.
Indeed, and you saw Moreno in the different jersey, the white jersey, as the leader of the combination category, which is the guy who has the smallest number of the sum of their position in general classification, mountains, and points. And he's been very consistent, also has won a stage so far in this year's Vuelta.
All right, again, slowly coming down. Its largest margin was 4.5 minutes at 1 point, but 13 riders up the road, the Peloton in pursuit, and still 40 kilometers left to go on stage 8 of the Vuelta. 13 Vuelta a España on Universal Sports is presented by Earbuds. Never hurt, never fall out, never stop. And now, on to an increasingly popular segment here on our Vuelta coverage, Ask Gogo, or Stump Gogo as I prefer. We take your tweets, we read them on the air, and Gogo interacts. And this next week tweet here on stage number 8 coming from Andrew. What's the strategy behind the breakaways? They never make it, and don't they just wear themselves out more? Gogo? What say you?
They absolutely do wear themselves out, and in a 3-week race like the Vuelta a España, it can actually cause guys not to be able to finish the full 3 weeks of racing because they get so tired from being in breaks. But the reason they do that is because once in a while they are successful. They get their name out there, they get their team out there and their sponsors. And when you look at all these riders from up above here, Lampre, BMC, Vacan Soleil, Omega Pharma, whatever the team is, they're putting a lot of money into these teams. Over $10 million in most of the team's budgets in this bike race. and they got to pay for it somehow. So one way to do that is to put a guy in the break.
And sometimes a rider may be going through his hometown or have friends and family out on the course, so they want to be out front when the race goes through. There's many different reasons why you may be in the breakaway outside of just trying to win a stage.
Yeah, and on top of that, let's take a couple of days ago when Tony Martin did almost 110-mile individual time trial effort. That meant that his teammates didn't have to chase all day. And in very many situations, if your team doesn't have to chase, then if you do get caught from that break later on, one of your teammates can win the race because they're fresh and they've been able to ride the wheels of the other guys who are chasing.
It's been very exciting almost every single day, especially at the end of the stages in our first week, with Tony Martin getting caught right at the line, with Philippe Gilbert and Zdenek Stybar yesterday battling it out right before the field was about to catch them at the end of yesterday's stage 7. One true sprint stage won by the Aussie Michael Matthews, an up-and-coming sprinter. So we've seen a lot of action, a lot of drama, and a lot of excitement in the first week. And hey, as we get into week number 2 today, this is where the real racing is about to begin. So the best is yet to come.
Indeed, a lot of guys are going to start to get sorted out over these next 4 days of racing that we have up until the time trial on stage 11. We're going to see a lot of changes, and we're going to start to see who is really at this race with the legs to get it done.
And let's consider the possibilities of the next 3 days in particular. Michael Charel, number 15 of AG2R, sitting back in the field here. 3 straight summit finishes today, tomorrow, and on Monday. 3 increasingly difficult mountain stages from today through tomorrow into Monday. They get harder every single day by just a little bit every day. So if you're a general classification rider, you've been biding your time so far, how do you approach these next 3 days? What are you looking to do tactically?
I think today you're looking to follow a little bit and not lose time, but not necessarily gain a bunch of time. And let's just note here that Matthew Boucher picked up that intermediate sprint there along the way from the breakaway group, but I'm sure they weren't really sprinting for it. The guys are really just trying to stay away from the peloton, most likely. But so today, to answer your question, Steve, you want to mark the other guys that are dangerous. If you're in trouble, you try and let a guy go who's maybe just a little bit less of a favorite at the end. And then maybe we get another unusual person to snatch a stage victory. And as we get closer to Monday, so the next 2 stages, you can start thinking about being more aggressive. But if you're super aggressive on today's climb, you might be vulnerable tomorrow or the next day.
So we're down to the final 35.5 kilometers of stage 8, and this big breakaway, watching their time slip away ever so slightly, 3:22 up the road. And Horner now just 3 seconds off the general classification lead of Vincenzo Nibali, sitting in 2nd place as we come into another summit finish on stage number 8. And with time bonuses, it's certainly a possibility that he could take back that red jersey, and he says he's going to try. He wants to go for it today, get that red jersey back, especially because of the way he lost it, with the gap that occurred on stage number 4 at the finish. And that's the reason that Nibali is wearing red today and not Horner.
Yeah, Steve, it was really a shame, and I actually spoke with Jose Acevedo, his director, yesterday, just checked in with him, asked him how Chris was doing, and he said Chris is really good right now. His condition is good, he's recovering well, and he's looking to go for it today. And Acevedo was pretty disappointed the way there was that split in the peloton in that finishing day on stage 4, the day after Chris picked up the jersey. So he ended up losing it on a finish where nobody really expected that. Even Vincenzo Nibali had left the stage because he didn't know he was back in the jersey.
They were all coasting across the finish line. Everybody thought that they got the same time, but it was determined there was a small gap between Nibali's group and Horner's group, just enough for Nibali to take back the red jersey. So Horner in 2nd place instead of 1st as we come to the summit finish on stage number 8.
And Steve, you know, like I was talking about Leopold Koenig earlier and how it looks like we got a crash here maybe on the back of the peloton. If not a crash, certainly a major bottleneck.
Enough to slow the guys down here at the very tail end of the race. And as Reinhard van Rensburg of Argo Shimano, who is in the white there. And well, here in the green, this is Michael Matthews, the leader of the points competition, and a sprinter for Ulrich Greenedge, who was also caught back there.
Yeah, Christian Knies, the man for Sky, who was in the break yesterday, and it is going fast. So let's see if we actually, oh yeah, we did have a couple guys, it looks like they just got stuck there with that guardrail. I'm telling you, man,
A little fender bender.
it is not easy to get through these towns with all the traffic control devices when you're in a peloton of 175 guys. You just get pushed out and squeezed, and guys make mistakes, and they're just riding so close together.
What you were going to say about Horner?
Well, what I was going to say about Horner is it's a very similar story to what I was saying about Leopold Koenig, who has his NetApp team on the front, and he's hoping, I think, he's hoping that he can fly under the radar a little bit of the true favorites and try and pick up a stage win. And Horner, at the start of the race today, said the same thing. He goes, you know what? Nibali is going to be watching Rodriguez and Valverde more than they're going to be watching Horner, and he's hoping he can capitalize. Even though he's already won a stage and been the race leader, he's not looked at as one of the three biggest favorites. He's just at half a step below them for the general classification, and he's hoping that he can capitalize on that fact.
Well, the riders coming into the town of Estepona, where the second located at 19 kilometers from the finish. As you might have guessed, a very popular resort and holiday town. Over 20 kilometers of beaches, harbors, and coastline here in southern Spain. And ironically enough, this city was actually chosen by the Walt Disney Organization in the early 1990s as the original site for the Euro Disney project before it later went to Paris, where it's now become a fixture. So they were originally going to put Euro Disney here instead of Paris.
No kidding.
I would not kid you, Gogo.
You would?
Especially not about Disney World.
You wouldn't? Well, you know, maybe they should have put it here because it seems like it's struggled a little bit in Paris, hasn't it? Do you know about their financial situation?
Well, the breakaway here, not contesting the field sprint, but I would love to see Space Mountain off to the right as the riders roll through here in the Vuelta.
Exactly. Right there, sort of hovering over the water.
So, getting down to the final 20K of racing, that means just about half a dozen kilometers from the start of that last climb. The Peñas Blancas. First time it's ever featured in the Vuelta a España. A climb of 14.5 kilometers, averaging 6.5%, but hits a maximum of 12.5% in the first 2K before it steadies out the rest of the way between about 6 and 8%.
Yeah, Steve, look at the peloton. It is totally strung out. Cannondale came to the front with a lot of men. They still have 2 men on the front, but everybody now scrambling for position because they know this thing's going to come blowing apart at the bottom of the climb.
Our leaders. Starting a climb with a 1-minute advantage.
And you can see just how narrow it was back there. That also makes things sketchy in the peloton. As you can see, the Garmin Sharp rider there getting rid of any extra weight. Alex Howes, the American, got rid of some food and things he wasn't going to be able to eat at this point in the race, but picking up a bottle there to cool off with.
Now Radio Shack coming to the front of the main field, riding for Chris Horner.
Very interesting to see, and look at all the men they have on the front for Radio Shack. At least 4 of them up there.
Katusha also working at the front of the field for Joaquim Rodriguez, their overall leader.
Look at the gap just plummeting now as riders take these really hard pulls on the front of the peloton, and then they just swing off and get dropped.
Looks like Horner is second wheel there. He is indeed. And then Joaquim Rodriguez a few wheels back for Katusha. This is up to the very front of the stage. Azamza for the Euskaltel squad. This is the steepest part of the climb where it gets over 12%. The 13-rider breakaway now seeing cracks form in the foundation. And 4 riders for Radio Shack. Now at the front, Chris Horner, second wheel again. Right behind Fabian Cancellara, who is leading the way.
Boy, Cancellara has some great form right now, I have to say. He is going to be tough to beat at the Worlds.
Vincenzo Nibali also there near the front in the red jersey as the overall race leader for Astana. Today, he can kind of sit back, mark wheels, and ride more conservatively. He doesn't need to take time. He can just play it easy here and follow the riders that are his main rivals.
Indeed, it puts him in a very enviable position. Now, let's remember that Chris Horner has a teammate up the road in Matthew Boucher in this breakaway group. So, if this group had a little bit more of an advantage coming into the climb, that could potentially really be a big benefit for Chris.
I think this might be my last
but with
race.
them being so close,
Because I'm wasting time on the small routes. I'm going to do a hill rise. These small routes are wasting time for me.
Starting to lose some contact with the main field as it gets stretched out on the lower slopes of this climb. Horner with teammates at the front, 3 seconds behind Nibali on the general classification. Coming up to the steep point now, where it gets up close to 12% and beyond.
And who said Fabian Cancellara couldn't go uphill as he's still at the front of the peloton, sitting second wheel when so many guys have already been dropped. That's the thing about Spartacus. He can go up a short hill very rapidly.
The breakaway group had a lead of 4.5 minutes at one point earlier in the stage. It's down under a minute now with 13.5 kilometers remaining. Radio Shack and Astana, the two teams with most riders at the front of the field. World champion Philippe Gilbert, number 51 in the rainbow jersey. After finishing second on yesterday's stage, he is having some trouble on this climb.
Yesterday he did look very good, and I think he has a great shot at winning a stage later on in this year's Vuelta.
Now back to the front.
Cataldo really starting to stretch some legs.
Again, he won stage 16 of the Vuelta last year, the 28-year-old Italian for Team Sky. Now setting the pace as the breakaway starts to lose some riders.
Cataldo's a very good climber, Steve, and he's starting to show that right now. He's finished 12th overall in the Giro d'Italia last year.
All right, Alejandro Valverde is there, number 1 in the dark colors with the green helmet for Movistar. Joaquim Rodriguez and the red and white of Katusha right behind him. Off to their right, overall race leader Vincenzo Nibali.
And Christian Meyer coming back from the breakaway group. The very effective Domestique on the Orica Green Edge team that usually we see on the front of the field all day, but today he was in the break.
This is live coverage of stage number 8 of the Vuelta a España here on Universal Sports, presented by Yerbud. Steve Schleimer alongside Todd Gogolski. We are down to the final 13 kilometers. The breakaway coming apart. Their lead under 1 minute to this main field. All of the top general classification riders are here.
Look at Fabian Cancellara. After all that work,
So I'll do this.
he's just going to have to just kind of ride within himself here. And he'll lose some time today. Not a big deal for him, though.
So Boucher at the front, team leader Horner behind.
Maybe I will do the tournament.
And 22 seconds to these three leaders with 8.5 kilometers now left to go. And from here, it's a pretty steady slope. Between 7 and 8% most of the way. That's the average gradient.
Look at this, Kreuziger in trouble. Roman Kreuziger, the leader of Saxo Tinkoff. Very unexpected to see him in trouble. He's a guy who came into today 42 seconds down. The general classification hope for that team. And he looks like he's starting to crack.
Not their highest GC rider. That's Nicholas Roach at 8 seconds back in 3rd place overall. But Kreuziger really their long-term overall threat. And now that may be slipping away.
Yeah, very surprising to see Kreuziger in that position. Especially, look at the size of this group. This could be 40 guys still left in this group.
That's certainly a surprise. Well, see exactly who's with him and how many. And these are the riders losing time with 8K left.
A lot of damage being done. Matteo Monteguti there, coming off number 18. The NetApp man, 156 is Bartosz Wizarski. He was in the early break and then did a bunch of work chasing at the front of the peloton. Well, let's see if that NetApp work pays off for them. If Leopold Koenig is able to transform this mountain into a big stage win for him and his team.
All right, the clock starts for our 3 leaders at the 8K banner. We'll see how far back the overall contenders are in the field. And Luis Mate is the name written on the road as the field comes through 17 seconds down. Mate, by the way, one of the only riders who really noticed this clock. He lives near here, runs into training a few times a week, and Bok Mollema now going to the frontier. Team leader for the Belkin team, making acceleration.
Big acceleration there by him. I talked with his director yesterday, Steve, Eric Decker, just to check in and see how Mollema was doing. He says he's feeling great. First 7 stages have been good for him. And he said this stage was a new chapter of the bike race with a longer and harder climb and many more to come. And he said Mollema's feeling very good.
All right, this is still the front of the race. Our 3 riders who just went out of the frame on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, the small group of general classification contenders, next group on the road. So Mollema was making that acceleration, but he's a little way back.
Okay.
So he was making an acceleration, but he's a little behind the other GC riders, it appears.
Yeah, it does appear that way. He just was trying to get back up in there. Mollema is a guy who's good on both long climbs, and he's also very punchy and explosive. But we haven't really seen much long climbing yet in this race, and maybe he's just having an off day.
How about Chris Horner, still second wheel, and teammate Fabian Cancellara pacing him earlier. Now Matthew Boucher, who's come back from the original breakaway, he's helping the American out at the front.
It's great to keep your team leader right at the front like that so he can respond to any attacks, and he's out of the wind. And that's the benefit of having Boucher up the road in that early breakaway. He can soft pedal just a little bit on the climb when it got really hard, go back, and then have that extra bit of freshness to help out Horner.
Peñas Blancos climb being used for the first time ever in the Vuelta a España here today on stage number 8.
Beñat and Chosti struggling for Movistar coming off. And you know, he finished 10th overall last year.
7K left for the small peloton. And looks like Valls is now gone. So it's Nares here at the front, followed by Cataldo.
Oh, look at Nares just grinding a massive gear out of the saddle. And you can see Cataldo just spinning away. But Boucher, still a trusty teammate.
The 2 Americans, Boucher and Horner, at the front of the general classification group. And boy, they are coming up on the back of our 2 leaders very quickly here. Just 10 seconds down now with 6.5 kilometers left.
Well, it looked like it was never to be for that breakaway group to succeed. But certainly, Cataldo and Nares have put in a big effort on this climb. And I gotta say, having Boucher there at the front of the field for Horner right now is massive for the American.
Dominic Nares, at one point, was the virtual overall race leader on the road when that 13-man breakaway had 4.5 minutes. That was earlier in the stage, and Nares starting the day 2:57 behind the man in the red jersey there, Vincenzo Nibali. But the gap is now almost been entirely reduced because of the pressure being applied by this field with Radio Shack at the front, Nibali 4th wheel from the front of the peloton right now in the red jersey.
And really the entire pressure from the peloton on the climb has been put on by Radio Shack. It's been one of just 3 guys from that team who's been on the front driving the chase and reducing the peloton. And now we're looking at maybe 25, 30 guys left, probably about 30 left in that peloton. You can see the colors of the Dutch national road champion, Johnny Hogerland, hanging on to the back of that group.
And here they come. You See him on the right-hand side of the screen, led by Radio Shack. That small, reduced main field. Bringing back our 2 leaders. Dialing them in with 6 kilometers now remaining to the summit finish. There's Sammy Sanchez, number 91 for Euskaltel. This is a climb that would typically suit him, but not riding at the front right now.
Yeah, he has not had very great legs, that's for sure. We saw him crack on the very first summit finish of the race and lost almost a couple of minutes there, and it's just been hard for him so far in this race. But if we move up to the front, there's Chris Horner out of the saddle. He does a lot of out of the saddle riding, the American. You notice when he won stage 3, he was out of the saddle probably about the final kilometer of the bike race. It was the same when he won the Sierra Road climb back in 2011 at the Tour of California, and he went on to win that race overall.
Well, considering what's happening right now, it looks like our stage winner is going to come from the reduced main field of general classification contenders. So that means that we also have a possibility of the race lead changing hands today, because there are riders within time bonus proximity of the red jersey. So we could see things shuffling in the general classification just a bit here. Time bonuses available at the line of 10, 6, and 4 seconds for the first 3.
Well, there are only 2 guys in the general classification that are within 10 seconds of the overall leader, and that's Vincenzo Nibali. So Horner's 3 seconds down, and Roach is 8 seconds down. So if either of those guys gets the maximum time bonification of 10 seconds, and Nibali doesn't get a time bonification, well then we'll have a new race leader. But there should be some kind of separation at the finish line as well. I don't think they're going to ride it all the way up and just sprint it out.
Well, also the possibility of Nibali getting dropped as well. So that brings more guys into time bonus proximity of perhaps moving forward if Nibali shouldn't be able to hold the wheels of some of these other top GC riders here in the final 5K. The handshake signifies that the breakaway is finally over. The 2 remnants of what was a 13-man group earlier in the stage about to be caught. Dario Cataldo and Dominic Neres. Small field of overall hopefuls coming through with 5 kilometers left to go to the summit finish that's being used for the first time ever in the Vuelta a España, the Peñas Blancas. And the first of 3 straight summit finishes on this second weekend of the season's 3rd Grand Tour.
It's going to be a downhill.
Now at the front of the race.
Easy.
And a lot of the general classification hopefuls are right here. Chris Horner, the American for Radio Shack, who wore the red jersey for 1 day, his second wheel. Vincenzo Nibali, the current overall leader, is right there near the front in a red jersey at the 5K banner. You also have Ivan Basso in the green for Cannondale, the 2-time winner of the Giro d'Italia. Joaquin Rodriguez of Katusha, the Spaniard in search of his first ever Grand Tour title, is in this group. And so is Alejandro Valverde, former Vuelta winner, wearing number 1 for Movistar, also looking very good in this group right now. There is Rodriguez in the red and white, right behind Valverde, who's in the dark blue and the green for Movistar. Sammy Sanchez, number 91, who we just mentioned, for the Euskaltel team, starting to move up now in the group.
Interesting to see how far back Valverde and Rodriguez are. They're kind of in the middle of this group. It's only Horner of the true big favorites. It's Horner and Nibali up in the top, but not the other guys. Now there goes Anton.
Igor Anton, the first acceleration from this group of general classification contenders, coming just inside of 5K from the finish.
It looks like there's a response there from NetApp, but I do not believe that is Leopold Koenig. I think that is David de la Cruz on that squad who's going.
Anton, 5:42 down on the general classification, so not an immediate threat here to the lead of Vincenzo Nibali. That's an Argo Shimano rider.
Young man on the Argos team was one of the guys they wanted to see just how he would perform on this climb today. He's kind of an unknown quantity in this type of competition with a climb like this.
Well, the Euskaltel team is disbanding at the end of the season. Looking for some final results to go out on a high. And that is Mark Wheel of the Argos Shimano team, now second on the road behind Antone with 4K left. There's Antone in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Well, the Euskaltel team has had a tough start to this Vuelta with the time lost by their overall leader, Sammy Sanchez. Antone, a couple of years ago, led this Vuelta before crashing out almost inexplicably when he was wearing the overall leader's jersey. Looked like he was in position to maybe go on to win the race overall, and he's never really been the same since.
It's true. He was on incredible form that year, and that was a huge lost opportunity for him. Looking at these guys here, Chris Horner taking a drink, Nibali taking a drink. They don't appear to be right at their limit to me, Steve. I think this is a bit of a wait-and-see type of a situation. But one thing I can tell you is Mathieu Boucher on the front. He's a good friend of Chris Horner's. They often have roomed together over the years, and he has been an integral part of Horner's win at both País Vasco in 2010 and the Tour of California in 2011, setting some blistering tempos on some climbs for Chris to then attack from.
This tempo looks pretty good from Igor Antone as the Movistar rider now moves out front here. Kopecky, number 2. He's 52 seconds behind Nibali in the general classification. Alejandro Valverde, of course, is the team leader, 21 seconds behind. He's sitting back in the group. And now other riders going forward. Horner has to respond. Astana, Katusha.
And that is Chris Horner that's leading the chase there. And I'm looking for the red jersey of Vincenzo. So Horner is on the gas. Ivan Santaromita for BMC, the Italian champion, is the man who really got the hostilities going. Horner came up to his wheel.
Here's our leader, Igor Antone, with just over 3 kilometers left. And now more action coming from that group. Horner.
Oh, big attack by Chris here with 3K to go. And nobody able to follow the 41-year-old American.
Nibali's a few seconds back, about 4 or 5 wheels behind Horner, who's now chasing Igor Antone, the leader with 3K left. Igor Antone, not a big threat on the GC again. He's 5:42 down, but he is a threat for time bonuses. And Horner would love a time bonus to move back into the red jersey of overall race leader. Antone inside the 3K banner. Horner leading the chase. Nibali coming up. He's now 2 wheels behind Horner. 8% is the slope right here.
Oh, Nibali has made it back up.
Ivan Basso right behind Vincenzo Nibali. He's going to come around him in the green, number 71, and he's going to go past Horner as well to the front of this group.
Well, and I can tell you, Nibali will not mark Basso, but you can see Horner got on the wheel because Horner wants this to be as hard as possible if he's got good legs.
You know who else is coming up? Sergio Henao and Rigoberto Urán of Team Sky, a double threat.
Oh, yeah, indeed. They're both right there. Urán in front, Henao right behind. Remember, Henao on the first summit finish, he suffered from not eating enough. He balked and he lost time, but they say he's got good form.
All right, Antone again, he is the leader. Or no, that's actually Sammy Sanchez, who's number 91 and losing contact. His teammate, Igor Antone.